Okay. Good evening. This is Angela Jameson, Chair of the New Canaan Inland Wetland Commission, and I'm calling to order the special meeting of the Inland Wetlands Commission on Monday, March the 24th, 2025 at 7:02 p.m. Mr. Redden, as Secretary, please could you call the roll?
Angela Jameson,
Present.
Beth Bernali, absent.
Absent.
Beth Sanford,
Here.
Daniel Suspanic, absent. Philip Williams,
Present.
Priscilla Wilkie, absent. Katie Owsley,
Here.
Adam Ramirez,
Present.
Don Mastronardi. I thought Don was attending by Zoom.
Yeah, you would.
I do not see him on Zoom.
Okay.
Okay, so absent for now.
Thank you very much.
How are there a few iPhone people not identified? But-
Oh,
Okay, maybe just call them one more time, but
yes, Priscilla Woike. If you're present, please announce yourself, and Don Mastronardi likewise. Okay, let's assume they're not on. So we need to seat some alternates. Mr. Ramirez, please would you take the place of Miss Brunali?
Yes.
And Miss Owsley, please would you take the place of Miss Woike?
Yes.
Thank you. So next we need to approve the agenda, which everybody's hopefully taken a look at. Any questions? If not, may I hear a motion, please?
Commissioner Sanford moves to approve the agenda.
Redden seconds.
All those in favor, please raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Any against? So that's approved unanimously. Next item, number 4, the minutes of the regular meeting of February the 24th, 2025. Are there any comments on those minutes? If not, may I hear a motion, please?
Commissioner Williams, motion to approve.
Redden second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Angela, I'm just abstaining because I had to leave early from that meeting.
Very good. Thank you very much, Ms. Owsley. So now I'm going to open the public hearing. Application Inland Wetlands -24-43-82 Brookwood Lane, Brookwood Hills LLC. This is a continuation of the public hearing that was first opened in January and continued at our meeting in February. So would just like to mention that we opened a public hearing based upon the petition that we received from 25 plus eligible New Canaan residents. And there are 2 memos that have been posted to the website today from the town attorney regarding the concept of adverse impact, and another regarding the 2-step process for providing permits for subdivisions. Commission members and others may find it useful to refer to these ahead of the commission making any determination on the application that is before us. So this evening, we will hear first from the applicant regarding new materials that have been posted. Commission is looking forward to hearing about the new drainage plan dated March 14th, as well as the updated wetland and buffer habitat enhancement plan dated March 14th. We'd also like to hear more detail on the alternative shared driveway plan dated March 18th that you have provided us with. We'd like to understand your thought process in relation to this alternative and any other alternatives you may have considered as well as your thoughts on the advantages and disadvantages of these alternatives in relation to your preferred shared driveway. So once we've heard from the applicants, we're going to hear briefly from town hall staff, Ms. Coplet, the town engineer, and Mr. Payne, the fire marshal. It will then be an opportunity for the interveners to present their thoughts, and we know that the interveners would like to have more time than they had to actually review in detail the additional material that the applicants have presented. I think it's therefore quite unlikely that we will be in a position to close the public meeting this evening. The plan would be to continue the public hearing at the regular meeting of the Inland Wetlands Commission on April 7th. And of course, the applicants will have the opportunity to have the final word before the public hearing is closed. So with that preamble, I'd like to hand it over to Attorney Zapitakis and team to share their comments with us. Ooh.
So sorry.
It's okay.
Did not mean to throw them at you.
Didn't
Here you go.
Disconnect us, that's all.
Thank you. So that's simply a printout of what I've got on the screen, and I will be sure to submit the presentation.
Well, thank you for the paper copies. It does actually make it easier to see the fine print. Yeah.
So again, Amy Zapitakis, here on behalf of Brooklyn Hills. Owner, also joined by William Penny, the wetlands consultant, and Lindsay Andrea, our civil engineer. So as was stated, we submitted revisions on March 14th in response to the comments that we received from the commission as well as from the SE minor, as well as conversations that we continue to have with the engineer and fire marshal. I'll let Mr. Andrea speak in more detail to those conversations. And Mr. Penny will propose wetlands enhancements. After the two of them speak, I will plan to go over the alternatives with you as well. I did submit a letter today addressing the letter that was submitted on Friday from Washington Rosen.
Excuse me, Amy, and maybe just, there's some people at home that didn't hear the conversation, so if you could, yep. So if you could repeat that and move it a little bit closer, then everyone will be able to hear you clearly.
All right. Would you like me to start from the very beginning? Okay. My apologies. Amy Zapitakis, Rucci Law Group, here on behalf of Brookwood Hills LLC, joined by Jim Hoffman and Adam Schur, the representatives of the owner, as well as William Kenny, the wetlands consultant, and Len DeAndrea, the project's engineer. We did submit on March 14th our revisions to the plans based on the communications we received both from the commission as well as from SE Minor, the fire marshal and town engineer. And Mr. DeAndrea and Mr. Kenny will go over the revisions to the plans as well as the proposed wetlands enhancements that will come from Mr. Kenny. And then once we've gone through our proposal, I will review in greater detail the proposed alternatives that have been considered by the applicant. I did submit a letter today addressing the legal issues raised by Wafsi Rosen. I believe that the town attorney also submitted a memo to the commission relating to the same matters. I don't plan to speak to that directly today, but certainly can if there are any questions. But I did the town attorney's letter and mine, which were both being written at I think the same time, we're pretty much in agreement. So before we get into any of the real details of the application, I want to take a step back and really talk a little bit about what is being proposed here. Our application is to use an existing 14-foot wide driveway and that we want to widen by 2 to 4 feet where possible, and we would like to realign the entrance somewhat. This is what is before the Inland Wetlands Commission, is the use of this driveway. The areas where we are proposing to widen it are in the upland review area. From the outset, the focus from the applicants has been on dividing the property into lots for residential development with the minimum of disruption to the existing property. It is a beautiful property and they would like to maintain it as much as they can in the way that it is. As part of the goal, the decision was made that the most logical and prudent course is to utilize, to the extent possible, this existing paved driveway. The idea of tearing out this driveway just to rebuild a nearly identical one a few hundred feet away seemed difficult to justify, both to this commission, to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it didn't seem like a smart or efficient plan, since that would represent significant increase in overall disturbance to the site. The proposal that we've put forward has been reviewed and approved by the Health Department, Engineering Department, and the Fire Marshal. We have lots that are well in excess of the minimum lot size for the zone. And with the current plan, we have no wetlands elimination. The very first submission that we had, there was approximately 4,700 square feet of wetlands elimination. The second submission still had about 550 square feet. We took a good hard look at the plan and have been able to get that down to 0. No work is being done within the wetlands other than the work that's being proposed to restore the wetlands. And as you can see, and Mr. Kenny will go into this with greater detail, we've proposed quite a bit of wetlands restoration, reconstruction of a stream which had been piped by a prior owner, as well as improvements to the wetlands buffer and upland meadow areas. So in total, we have 0 wetlands being removed and more than 17,000 square feet of wetlands being restored. So this is the proposed subdivision as its whole. Again, by way of orienting ourselves, north is actually to the right on the map, west being to the top. We have 9 proposed lots. We're proposing to retain the existing carriage house on lot 7. That's this lower lot down here. We will have physical access for lots 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 off of the existing driveway, as well as access to a dry hydrant and off of the existing driveway. We've also added a new pump line easement out to Brookwood Lane as requested by the Fire Marshal, and Mr. DeAndrea will give you some more details on that. Lots 1, 2, 3, and 4 will be accessed directly off of Brookwood Lane. So in our initial plan, we were expanding the driveway to 18 feet through the entire length of the driveway. The current proposal adjusts the entrance. Well, I can't get my cursor over this part, but the current proposal adjusts the entrance and then has the driveway for about 450 feet, stays at 18 feet. Then it narrows to 16 feet for the next 150 feet, winds again to 18 feet. That's to give us that area where we can have access to the fire department easement. And then it narrows back down again to 14 feet and then is 16 feet through the ending till you get back to the circle. The 14-foot section, sorry, is about 300 feet and then 16 feet for the remainder. So the plan is not to widen the driveway anywhere where doing so would result in the elimination of any wetlands. Mr. DeAndrea will discuss in detail the stormwater treatment that's been proposed for the driveway. This includes vegetated micropools, catch basins with pre-treatment filters, and curbing to contain stormwater on the driveway and direct it into the stormwater management system. So I'm confident that after reviewing these changes, the commission will see that we have really taken to heart the comments that we've received and have modified the plans to address the comments. As a result, I believe that this is a comprehensive plan that more than meets the objectives of providing access to the property without any adverse impacts on the wetlands. So with that, I'll turn this over to Mr. DeAndrea. I want to make sure that's on.
Push the button.
Mhm.
Okay. Good evening. Leonard DeAndrea, Connecticut professional engineer with DeAndrea Surveying Engineering PC. And we have provided the land surveying engineering services for this subdivision. Recently, we prepared a more detailed overview of the changes we've recently made, and that was in a kind of a report format dated March 18, 2025. Tonight, I'll go through it a little bit more quickly and certainly be available to answer any specific questions. Amy, probably slide 12. I'm gonna kind of work in reverse. Slide 12, I think, takes you down to. Right there. That's okay. Right. Okay. That would be. I'm gonna start at the back. I know a little bit reverse. Okay.
So this is slide 7 for those that have.
Oh, it's like, okay. So as the review of the proposed subdivision continued, we listened to and responded to comments expressed by members of the Inland Wetlands Commission and those of our neighbors and their consultants. And since our initial submission in November of 2024, the general concept has remained the same, which is to subdivide the property into 9 building lots, of which each lot will exceed the 2-acre minimum lot size, and the lots will range in size from 2.15 to 4.79 acres. But the increase in homes would only be 7 because there are 2 dwellings on the property already. And what we've talked about from early on, because of just how beautiful a setting it is we are proposing to serve 5 of the 9 home sites by using the existing driveway while making certain improvements to better serve emergency vehicles and to incorporate stormwater management features that will capture and treat stormwater over and above the New Canaan stormwater management minimum requirements and that of the Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual. The latest adjustments to our design plans will further benefit the natural systems and confirm that the improvements would not negatively impact their functions either during the brief construction phase or when viewed long-term. The plan is also cognizant effort to balance the proposed development and protecting existing tree stands as much as we are protecting the functions and benefits of the adjacent wetland systems with minimal short-term disturbances. And we've mentioned again that we've worked now to a point where we have no wetland encroachment for the improvements that we're going to be making to the existing driveway. Now that driveway, as we know, runs along the eastern portion of the property beginning at Brookwood Lane and generally running south to a driveway circle proposed in the uplands and generally on proposed lots 5 and 6. None of the driveway improvements will encroach into the wetlands and no trees would be removed from the wetlands. The driveway, for the most part, measuring 14 feet in under existing conditions, will be widened in the upland areas because of many of the discussions we've had with the fire department. And the idea, of course, would be if an emergency vehicle is coming in, we want to make sure that 2 vehicles can pass, emergency vehicles, well, let alone cars as well. So wherever we could, the driveway has been widened to 18 feet, but not in the tight areas where we're passing through a wetland, 2 wetland sections on either side. Part of the early request was to provide a dry hydrant, and that dry hydrant has been shown on the plans for quite a while. But the fire department asked us on several occasions if we could do more. And so what we've done is we've had a field meeting and we walked the site to figure out where we could go on a route through the property out to Brookwood Lane so we could actually leave a hydrant, as it's called. And the fire marshal can correct me if I'm saying it wrong. We start with a dry hydrant by the pond. Their vehicle would set up by that dry hydrant and then pump water out to the street. So in a sense, it'd be continuous. And so therefore, I believe on the street, it's not called a dry hydrant. Now it's called a hydrant. We walked that route and we made sure that route would be outside of any wetlands. So again, no wetlands would be disturbed or eliminated as a result of adding that secondary line that would take you out to Brookwood. That would be for the benefit of not just this subdivision, but obviously neighbors in the general area. So the stormwater management plan will not only treat the areas of minimal driveway expansion, which is a good point to make here, but it captures and will treat runoff from the entire driveway. So it's not just the areas that we're expanding. We've now designed it in such a way we're going to capture all the runoff off the driveway and run it through a number of treatment drains.
Excuse me, Mr. DeAndrea, Kathleen Holland for the record. Can we just go back to now that the screen is showing the location of the proposed
Extension of
the fire?
the fire line.
That wasn't up on the screen, so can maybe Amy could just trace that route to, and what slide are you on?
So this is slide 6, which is not actually the best one to see this proposal. If we go to the actual subdivision plan, which is slide 4, you can see the easement for the where the there'll be a connection all the way out to the road. So there's a easement across the lot and then out to the road.
And this is a little larger scale.
Yeah, but
Actually,
yeah. And so going then to slide,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you sort of trace with your cursor
Yeah.
the line that
Can
the
you-
hydrant will
can
take?
you see my cursor on the screen?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's right here, and then it follows along inside of the driveway out to the street,
Yep.
out to Brookwood Lane.
Thank you.
And then if I go to sheet slide 9 is a blow up of lots 8 and 7. You can, again, you can see it perhaps even a little bit more clearly there again. Oops, where's my cursor? Here it is. Coming down through lot 8, down into the road, and then out to Brookwood Lane.
And on that slide, the wetlands are the numbered to the, what would that be? The southeast?
To the southeast of this is the wetlands here.
Right.
So south of where this proposed easement would be located.
Thank you.
And get a feel for this. This is a line that delivers not a few gallons per minute, but I think it's of the order of 1,000 or 1,500 gallons per minute. It was a pretty interesting way how they presented it to us. Tell you what we're doing. We're not going to drive the truck down there, grab it, fill it up, and run away. We'll keep a truck at the dry hydrant, and then we can have it pumped continuously in case there's a large fire in the area. So just to back up a bit, then we have proposed a stormwater management plan that will not only treat the areas of minimal driveway expansion, but we will capture and treat runoff from the entire driveway where presently no formal treatments exist. As recommended by the Connecticut Stormwater Manual and the 5 Mile River Watershed-Based Plan, our management design is a best management practice, BMP, probably heard that now and then, design utilizing low impact development. And I'll get into what those are in a minute. So now you can
Can we
go
go to this one?
starting down. Well, let's just start down by the circle because I'm a worker way back up. Right.
In the circle.
So I'll kind of go through these treatments and then what's changed along the way. Early on, we started in the circle, and that was a perfect situation for that circle to give the fire apparatus a simple turnaround. There's no backup, no hammerheads driving right around, but that sets us up nicely to put a rain garden right in the center of that circle. So that's a vegetated circle. It will capture, will hold, it will infiltrate and treat runoff. Working our way back up, right about right there. That's our, and I'm working backwards here for you. Unfortunately, I don't know why I decided to do it this way, but it seemed to make more sense to me. That's around station 1375. And again, we have a set of basins there, but more than just the basins, which have the sumps and the traps, we listened to the comments. And so we have selected a catch basin insert that actually has filters. Yes, it requires maintenance like anything else, but these are readily available and they have a proven history. And after they leave the basins, they then go into this vegetated stormwater swale, which again is a lid design element requiring minimal upland shoulder disturbance. And moving to the next set. Yep. Around station 11 plus 50, we have proposed 2 catch basins again with sumps and inserts. And the stormwater then passes through a vegetated micropool. The design is considered again a lid design element. Continuing back to the next one, going out towards the road at station 575. There's 2 basins set up. The collected runoff passes again through this time a double bay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Are we
Next
here?
sheet. Yes, next sheet. Or the one
Wrong way.
before that, actually. Right, there you
Right
go.
here.
Right. In that case, it passes through a kind of elongated vegetated micropool. Again, a lid design element. Now I'll stop there for a second because what does that mean? Well, lid, low impact development means we're not in there with huge machines. There's not deep excavations. We're working with the landscape itself. We're shaping it to do its job, to collect, encourage infiltration. Then we hand it over to Mr. Kenny's firm and let him select the plants and everything else that's most appropriate for these kind of functions. Then finally, as we get out to the road, as soon as we come in about 75 feet, we have been proposing 2 catch basins at location as well. So those will also have the inserts and of course the sumps. And that will go to an infiltration system. And that's one of the reasons is it's just not collecting a lot of runoff. But because there's a little bit of a high point there, excuse me, a little bit of a low point there, we felt that was appropriate to put those 2 additional basins there as well. So there'll be a total of 8 basins now with each one equipped with the inserts as well. And the road driveway itself is isolated now. So we are treating the runoff that hits the driveway in all cases. Now, the other thing about the entrance, again, the entrance could be moved further to the east. We looked at it. Right where we have it now is a good location, in our opinion, because it just seems to be a shame to take down a large specimen oak and shift it another 5 or 10 feet to get a little bit further away from the actual start of the water course, which at that location receives 2 concrete pipes that take runoff from Brookwood Lane. And there is an end wall at that location. So what we did instead is we said, okay, we'll move it as far as we can without compromising the tree. And then we'll hold our edge with a little retaining wall. That's one of the locations where we still maintain a little bit of a retaining wall to hold our driveway envelope. So if the commission decided you wanted it farther away, I want to be able to tell you that we could do that, but we would lose a tree that I think is unnecessary in this case to lose. Then throughout the modified driveway design, we've actually from our first pass, we've iterated this down to where really following the existing grade of the driveway as much as possible. In some cases, we changed the grade of the driveway a little bit because we wanted to make sure we had positive pitch to pick up the runoff. And then we adjusted design as we kept on going to and have eliminated any formerly proposed wetland encroachments, such as we had some stone riprap pads. Wherever we had those, we have pulled them back or eliminated them. We've even eliminated one crossing as well because it wasn't needed. There are some crossings there that are existing. Then stormwater quality, that's been brought up, of course, is important. Now, we've evolved this design. We didn't look at this as a high traffic area. It simply isn't. It's some vehicles, maybe some delivery trucks. The cars these days are not as nearly as leaky as they were before. The vehicle trips are perhaps 0 to 10 on average vehicle trips a day. So what we're doing is really going beyond what one might consider is necessary for a driveway, but that's not an issue here. We've done it. The grading works. The client has been very receptive to it. And then at the end of the day, our design goes beyond the minimum treatment required by New Canaan Department of Public Works Engineering Division. It goes beyond the design methods suggested by the Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual, specifically Section 10.2, Objectives and Benefits of Stormwater Retrofits. And I thought that was interesting because what we are really doing here is a retrofit. We're keeping the driveway and we're improving on it. The driveway is really no longer, but we're adding water quality benefits that just presently don't exist today. And also, there was a comment from the consultant, SE Minor, that 5 Mile River watershed-based plan, specifically summarized on page 6, there are goals in that plan. And I would like to say that we're dealing with a sub-watershed region that's only about 32 acres on our site, 31, I think, off-site, 60 acres in total. I believe the 5 Mile River watershed is about 8,000 acres. So we're not a major tributary by any means. Anyway, the goals in that report on page 6 is enhancing stormwater management, improving water quality, protecting and enhancing wildlife habitat, and increasing awareness and stewardship. So we're certainly improving on stormwater management. I've gone through that. We've added all these techniques that don't exist today. What's the result of that? A dramatic improvement on the water quality. Protecting and enhancing wildlife, Mr. Kenny will speak to the enhancement, but we certainly are protecting it. There are no barriers. There's no fencing proposed. Animal corridors are maintained, so there's nothing to prevent that or degrade that. And then awareness and stewardship. That to me is pretty interesting because as you have your parks and you have your walkways, we encourage people to enjoy the benefits of a wetland system. This driveway is existing there. You will drive home, you'll appreciate each side of it, and you'll be a good steward and keep it clean. I could probably say it might be easier to keep clean than some of the long walkways that go through our parks. You have to follow behind whatever kids or adults that aren't careful enough. So here we have a driveway, you drive through this corridor, you get to your 2 houses at the end. It makes sense when you drive it and walk it. You don't take it down a lot of trees to get these driveways to access those 2 properties at the end. Following the guidelines for BMPs and proposing lid solutions, coupled with the extensive enhancements offered by William Kenny's plans, we have easily achieved the goals of the watershed-based plan. And then I'll end with kind of a little summary of what I read today in the staff report. Is this a significant impact? And we don't, as a team, believe it is. And the items I'm listing here, A through G, are enumerated to the staff report, where it listed some of the issues you should be concerned with as you look to this as whether or not it's a significant impact. So in A, improvements are proposed outside of the map wetland limits and will only have a positive effect by retrofitting the driveway to provide BMP and lid design solutions for stormwater collection and treatment. B, the design in no way changes any natural channels or inhibits the natural dynamics of the adjacent wetland / watercourse system. And again, that's true. We're going to be making enhancements, but we are not changing the course of any of these or eliminating. Since the improvements, since the improvements are proposed outside of the wetland limits, and since no barriers are proposed, the capacity of the wetland system to support a diversity of aquatic, plant, or animal life and habitats will not be diminished, and the plan puts forward open space protection. D, with the minimal grade changes being proposed by the lid design, the disturbance areas are easily contained during the short duration construction period. Again, we don't have a lot of steep slopes. We can easily enclose this with our silt fencing and monitor it on a weekly basis. With monitoring, there would be no concern for turbidity, siltation, or sediment discharges into the wetlands, either during construction or afterwards. Existing drainage patterns are being maintained. That's E. Natural water sources will not be interrupted, and seasonal groundwater levels will not be affected. In fact, we propose to restore watercourses and wetlands. F, the driveway will collect and treat stormwater runoff from all storms, thereby protecting the wetland system both on-site and off-site. And finally, G, other than the improvement to water quality, the benefits of the wetlands from both a scientific or educational perspective will not be diminished. The best of the designs is an iterative process, and we appreciate and respond to all concerns expressed by the commission and the neighbors consultants. As a result, the current stormwater management design for the existing driveway will treat and manage runoff so that there will be no short-term or long-term adverse impacts to existing wetland systems. And we'll take any questions. If not, I would turn it over to Mr. Kenny.
Do commission members have any questions for Mr. DeAndrea at this point? Ms. Owsley? Okay, Ms. Owsley?
Good evening. Just one question. You mentioned changing the filters. Is that going to be written into an HOA contract, or changing filters? How often does that have to happen, and who's
Very good question.
responsible?
Yep. So like in a lot of towns now, this would have an association to maintain the driveway. And we would use examples and work with staff to show what we suggested is done. And again, they're going to hire a landscaper. This is not the individual homeowners maintaining this common driveway. So with, we actually have a slide of it. With that product, the manufacturer will recommend how often it has to be changed. And then this is written in. And you can buy these things online. It's on the screen now. They're that simple. And these are filters now. So one of the comments was, are you addressing the hydrocarbons and any of the other trace pollutants that may come about? And what this does is this, as you can see in this, it's an insert. So it must go through the filters. It's the filters that get changed, and also the debris trap. Those are easy. You look in, if there's debris, it's easy to.
And that's for those of you looking on your paper copies, this is slide 14 that Mr. DeAndrea is referencing.
One other thing too is when we write up this drainage maintenance agreement, the salts would not be allowed. If there's anything to be addressed or addressing on these driveways during winter months, it would be calcium chloride, but not salt. And I personally hate salt. So not the proper form to get into it, but I could tell you stories. Anyway, that's how these things work, and they work quite well. As an example, in your neighboring town, Stanford, if we design anything with new drainage that goes through the city of Stanford, it has a drainage maintenance agreement. Greenwich, it gets filed on the land. So you can run with the problem.
And in this case, because we will have the homeowners association and agreement for the driveway and open space, it'll be quite easy to make sure that that is on the land records, and any future purchaser would be well aware of the requirements and the maintenance.
That's Sanford here. So, what you're saying is that will be part of the contract in terms of homeowners not to use salt? Is that what?
Yes.
Yes.
Then kind of along the same theme, you mentioned that while it's going to be beneficial for the habitat and wildlife corridors will not be changed, will that mean that a homeowner couldn't put up a deer fence?
That's a good, interesting question.
Well, again, let's be.
Focusing on this project, but cumulative. I mean, I just want to know how that statement would apply.
the statement regarding maintenance has to do with the homeowner's agreement for the driveway. And all of what we're talking about is for this shared driveway. As far as the development of each individual lot, to the extent that there is any potential for impact on the wetlands, that will come before you in connection with the individual lot.
Ms. Holland, I believe you had a question.
Kathleen Holland for the record. For Mr. DeAndrea, during your presentation, you mentioned that your stormwater plan, your proposed stormwater plan will capture and treat stormwater, and that in your opinion, professional opinion, you are exceeding the state standards in addition to the local standards. You gave one example of the state.
Well, they say it this way too. The state drainage manual is our suggested paths. So perhaps better stated that we are abiding or following all those goals. And let me say it this way too. I don't believe that this minimal use requires the inserts. We're not dealing with parking lots. That's a great use for those. We're not, this is not a high traffic area. But in speaking with our client, if that's what helps this commission appreciate what we're trying to do here, then we're going to go with the inserts.
Thank you. Do you have any other examples throughout your system where you may be exceeding it on the local level?
Yeah, our first iteration, we were doing infiltrators. And some could argue that may not be lit. In some areas, you can only put so much to a system like that to be considered lit. So we've eliminated all but one of those. And that's another thing where we've gone a little bit beyond. Again, remember that your engineer, town engineer, has approved what we've done before. So in this case, I believe then we're going beyond what's necessary at our minimum.
Okay. I have one follow-up question, and let me just find it in my notes. On the entry driveway, you mentioned in order to try to hold the embankment, is I believe I'm understanding your presentation, you're going to be putting some a low boulder retaining wall on that shoulder, one shoulder.
Right.
Yes,
Yes.
that's
Yeah, that's on the screen now. It's an extension of the head wall that's existing now. It's going to wrap along the road for a section of the roadway south on the westerly edge.
Okay, so you're picking up the end of the existing head wall?
Yes.
See now, and so that will
That's
hold.
just to minimize the grading. We don't have to run with the grading down towards the bank edge.
Okay. If you're successful in getting the approval and the most recent elongated vegetative micro pool that will be created,
Not the double one you're talking
the
about?
double one, the double, that's the new,
Midway?
that's the new one that replaced an infiltrator system, I believe. So
Yes, that's it.
your calculations, and this might be more appropriate for Mr. Kenny, upon establishment of that micro pool, would that be considered at some point an actual regulated area or a wetlands?
Well, I'll just say it this way. We're creating it and it's not going to hold water for any long period of time. That's why we have multiple systems along the way. Then as far as the regulation part of it, I would defer to Mr. Kenny. But this is not a pond we're creating.
I'm just, that the micro pools, or at least one of them, like that one is literally adjacent to a wetland. So I was just thinking ahead, if it did get created, would it eventually be considered potentially a wetlands? I don't know. Maybe we don't know the answer to that because these are fairly new.
So it's not like they'll hold, they're not clay lined in any way. They
Okay.
are designed.
I think maybe this might be a good transition time if there aren't any other questions to Mr. Kenny's presentation, so he can review that.
Right. No more questions at the moment. Let's proceed in that manner. Thank you.
Good evening. Bill Kenny, Principal William Kenny Associates in Fairfield. I'm a professional wetland scientist, soil scientist, and landscape architect. Answer that immediate question. Because that micropool is designed with infiltration, then we expect it to hold water for less than a day or two, less than a day. And due to that, with proper maintenance, it will not become a wetland. So just like the catch basin inserts, these micro pools will require some maintenance. When they're doing their job, it's going to collect fines and things like that. And there's the potential that they would clog the surface, and it could, but as will be described in the maintenance plan, measures will be taken to ensure that that infiltration capacity remains.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second on that, which is
What?
important.
Sure.
Sorry. The maintenance more is for fall cleanup, perhaps maybe a little spring, but the inserts are quite different because again, there was a discussion of some can pass the basin. Well, with these inserts with their filter, the inserts with their filters, that reduces that like dramatically. I just don't know how it can pass. So when those basins aren't working, it's pretty obvious. And then maintenance can be called in to replace it.
Okay. So with that said, or if you have any questions based on what we just, okay. Then I'd like to just review with you the habitat enhancements related to wetlands and buffers. And the plan, when initially proposed, submitted to you in December, when there was close to 5,000 square feet of wetland loss, we had 14,000 square feet of wetland creation, almost 3-to-1, plus 250 over 250 linear feet of removing a pipe and restoring a watercourse, and then some habitat enhancement, some wetland enhancement, degraded wetlands we were going to enhance. So although we've reduced the wetland elimination to 0, no wetlands are proposed to be removed with this proposal. All that mitigation and enhancement remains. Plus, we added some more. At the previous hearing meeting, there was the chair asked if we had other options or ideas for mitigation, and so we went back and looked at those. And actually, in a few minutes, I'll review with you some of the options that we came up with. But initially, I'll talk about the details of the one that we've selected to propose for this project. But with all being said, now we're going to be well over 20,000 square feet of mostly new wetland that's been restored, or highly degraded wetland that we're going to bring back to life and function at a high level. So we'll start at the north end of the property and move south downstream, and just we'll do a quick review of what was previously proposed, and that's way up in the top right-hand corner where we had the 14,000 square feet of wetland restoration. As you might recall, that area was used for many decades as a landscape debris area. So they piled leaves and branches and other materials in that area. It opened up the canopy, more sunlight came in. So you had fill that eliminated a wetland, Japanese knotweed growing on top of it. Great opportunity to remove that fill, take out all the root system of that knotweed, and restore a wooded wetland in that area. It's flat, great opportunity for increasing flood control, flood storage, floodwater storage, improving habitat. I like the idea that it's removed from the development areas of the property, so less likely to be fussed with potential future property owners. So great location, flat wetland that provides a lot of good habitat and functional improvements, and a significant increase in wetland area. Also, just to the south of that is where an existing driveway is, just 50 or 60 feet away. And so we're proposing that driveway goes into the existing dwelling in that area. So we're going to remove that driveway and remove this fragmentation that occurs in that area with the wetland habitat. And so do some wetland restoration there, and some wetland enhancement and buffer enhancement by getting rid of that driveway. And as we move south, I would like to talk about the micro pool. So previously, the stormwater drainage was subsurface in infiltration chambers, which are beneficial for stormwater management. Now we have this micro pool, which both benefits stormwater management, but it also will be a vegetated habitat. We're proposing it to be vegetated with native herbaceous vegetation, meadow vegetation. So it'll be grasses, native grasses and forbs, great pollinator area. And so it's good habitat and good stormwater management. Go to the next slide, number 7, and we move downstream. And we have the other micro pool that was previously proposed, and we still have that now. And again, we'll be vegetating that with native meadow vegetation with the flowering plants and the grasses. And then we carry that down, that meadow vegetation all along the length of the drive, including the swale that's proposed. So you have the micro pool and the swale, again, providing stormwater management benefits as well as habitat benefits. And then in the center of the drawing there is where we have the proposed watercourse restoration. And this has been proposed since December. It's 255 linear feet of where currently the watercourse has been piped for decades, and we're proposing to remove that pipe and reestablish a channel and the wetland habitat that is immediately adjacent to that. So where we chose to expand our habitat enhancements is at the southern end of the site. And similar to the northern end, where it's somewhat removed from future activities, we saw this as a great opportunity. It's an area that's currently a meadow wetland, but it has a condition that we find often in developed suburban landscapes like this, where a watercourse has been down cut over time. Naturally, when it first occurred before development, the bottom of that watercourse might have been higher, and you had a wetland next to it. But with that watercourse being higher, the water from the watercourse was helping to feed that wetland. With the piping of the watercourse upstream and other improvements around this watercourse now is a couple feet below that wetland. So it's made that wetland much drier than what it was before development occurred in this area. Plus, the previous owners put a little bit of fill on top, maybe a foot of fill. So they raised the wetland up and dropped the watercourse down and dried out the wetland. It's still a wetland. We mapped it as a wetland, but it's very low functioning in its current state. And it's maintained mostly as a meadow. So we could go in there, we could lower this area down to close to the stream level and restore a higher functioning wetland, plant it with native trees and again, the meadow vegetation, both the grasses and wildflowers. And this, by lowering it, we're increasing also its ability to hold floodwater. So we're both the wetland at the north end and this wetland with the restoration, we're increasing opportunities to hold floodwater during storms and thereby help people downstream by providing more storage. So we're improving the habitat and how it functions, providing additional storage. It's somewhat removed from future residential improvements, so it's well protected by open space areas and easements and wetlands surrounding it. So we thought that was a good location to expand this and bring our restoration enhancement for wetland areas above 20,000 square feet. And then we have several thousand square feet of buffer enhancement. And we have the stormwater areas that we're also naturally vegetating. And then I could briefly run, I think it's slide 8, perhaps, where we have a summary of different areas, option area 1 through area 4 of different options for wetland and habitat improvements. Area 1 is the area that we just talked about. And it's go as far as lowering that whole area like we're proposing and create high functioning wetlands or restore high functioning wetlands. Or it's a meadow, you could simply go in there and if you wanted to plant trees. But I don't, in that location, I don't think necessarily that meadow habitat is a bad thing. It's not full of invasive vegetation. It's been maintained through mowing. The mowing has helped or has controlled invasives in that area, so it's not an issue in that area. In area 2 is where the water course was piped down the middle of this relatively flat wetland. And to the west and to the east of that wetland, the land slopes down. At the toe of the slope of both of those, they put in swales and drains to prevent that water from getting to the wetland in the middle. So there's and they put in a shallow layer of fill. They dropped the water table, raised the wetland surface, piped the water course, maintained it as lawn. So there's opportunities there. Area 3 at the north end of the site, northwest corner, is where there's an existing some maintenance buildings, shed, garage, dumping over years of materials there, stockpiling of materials. So that's an area where there's an opportunity, or when you remove the shed and the garage and you're going to revegetate that area, it'd be great to revegetate that area with native plants. And then lastly, area 4, because we already proposed so much in the north end of the site, there wasn't much left there to choose from. But if you wanted to, there's a very small area there where we could expand the wetland a little more. But we feel that with what we're proposing, with the reduction of wetland loss from 5,000 to 0 square feet, we're at 0 square feet, and then with increasing from 17, 18,000 to well over 20,000 square feet, we do believe that we are proposing substantial and appropriate habitat enhancement and mitigation for this project. And when you combine that with the fact that the driveway exists without stormwater management, and the improvements to the driveway are at this point are relatively small, with widening only in areas or meaningful widening is in areas beyond the wetlands. So, and all the stormwater management improvements that are being proposed. So that's all a form of mitigation as well. So substantially reduced impacts to the wetlands, no direct impacts, no long-term direct impacts, substantially increased mitigation. And I think that the change from the subsurface infiltration chambers to the surface infiltration living structures, vegetated structures, is a great improvement. So with all that, it's my professional opinion that this is certainly a very good proposal, and long-term has a net beneficial impact on the wetlands, not just in size, but in how they function. So it's substantial benefit. Be pleased to answer any questions that you might have.
So do commission members have questions for Mr. Kenny? Okay, Ms. Holland.
No one else?
I'll ask
Oh,
my
so no,
questions.
go ahead.
Ms. Sanford?
I'm curious in terms of where you put the conservation easements or identified them. Kind of how you went about selecting where that would go and what kind of work would go into maintaining and controlling invasives in those pieces of land.
I'll talk about how we set up the open space.
Right.
So New Canaan has an interesting requirement in the subdivision, which is, I don't want just your wetlands and a conservation easement, I want some uplands. So that set aside that we do can have as a percentage any more wetlands than the total property. And
Could you say that again?
it can be confusing. So we have a certain percentage of wetlands on the entire site. And then we're required to give a certain amount of land set aside for conservation purposes. It can be as a fee simple or in form of easements. But when we meet that criteria, that amount that we give back cannot have as a percentage any more wetlands in that section than of the entire property. So that means we have to find continuous run of land that really does that, that it has upland areas. And I think it's 19% wetlands, no more than. So that's how we establish it on the easterly side. And the reality is, as you cross over the driveway, you'll get into those wetland areas by default. So it's a buffer on the east side. Then it goes across the driveway. The wetland areas themselves are a buffer. And then the other thing nice about it too, which hasn't really been talked about, since we wouldn't have to use the access way up on the westerly side, that stand of tree stays as well. Then there's nothing you can put in there. It's just for an access way. So that's how we got to delineating the open space that we're providing at the subdivision level. And then Mr. Kenny can speak to.
How do you differentiate between the open space and the conservation easement? What is?
So we did, it's a good question again. So what we did is we said, where can we get a long continuous piece of land? And that would be an open space. I believe that's 2.0692 acres. And then as we, if we had a separation of wetlands, for instance, way over there on the southerly end, you'll see conservation easement, CE-6. And that's because when we're looking at the proposed open space, that will be owned as the association, right? So that'd be owned as the association. The open, the conservation easement is going to be a restriction on the individual lot over and above what the open space parcel is. So that's why some are easements and some are open space.
Angela Jameson for the record. Mr. Kenny, I'd just like to run over again, or ask you to run over again, the proposal to open up the watercourse. So if we could put up the map that shows that area best. Thank you. So will there be an open watercourse from the pond through to almost where the turning circle is?
There are pond. There is an existing open watercourse that extends down 50 feet. So so just about 50 feet down from the pond, then the watercourse restoration will begin, and we show that with the double parallel lines.
I'm sorry, what will start? No, I'm sorry, I didn't hear Mr. Kenny.
So we show the graphic for the watercourse restoration
Yes.
is two lines.
Yeah.
And it's in that sinuous shape.
Okay.
And then at about 255 feet in length, and then at the downstream end is a single line, and that represents one of the existing watercourses channels that remain today. So we're going to connect with one of those other channels that exist today.
Right. And what happens to those water channels? They just seem to peter out.
Oh, they converge at the existing pipe
Right.
that runs under the existing road, and so that would be maintained. And so, yes.
You did this already either last time or the time before, but could you speak again, please, to the impact of opening up that watercourse for the wetlands that that are contiguous to it? What function that open watercourse channel will have?
Sure. So by opening that, a number of different benefits. It provides that water source as a use for wildlife in the area. So now they have more access to it. Certainly the pond is just upstream, but every linear foot that you have provides more opportunities for wildlife to use that for drinking, but also for aquatic insects and animals that might actually live in that. And then I think a nice benefit further to the community is that when you have a large storm and water comes pouring down there and it's in that pipe and gets concentrated and the velocity is increased by opening this watercourse, if you get a high volume of water, instead of getting forced down the pipe at a high speed, it comes out over the surface and goes onto the wetland that is your little floodplain area there. So it provides an opportunity again for more storage of water and it helps to rehydrate that adjacent wetland area that isn't getting that water now because it's in the pipe. So I would say those are the two primary, and we'll be doing plantings along that. We had a third sheet that's not in the slide set, but it was in the drawings that we submitted where we have a section view of the water course and that shows how we're vegetating up to the bank of it. We're gonna use native stones to help create the bank and have a natural bottom where you could have insects living in that stone bottom. And so.
Thank you. So my next question relates to I would now like to ask you to clarify for us exactly which additional wetland enhancement proposals are now part of the application that is being submitted to us. It sounded as though what you were proposing at the north end and at the south end certainly are, but that the ideas shown on slide 8 are not at this point. Is that correct?
They are not, except for whatever our proposal is on our drawings numbered 3 of 3, entitled Wetland and Buffer Habitat Enhancement plans or notes and details. So those 3 drawings show what is proposed for your review and decision.
And those are slides 6 and 7 in the current presentation.
Slide 6 and 7.
Right.
Okay, so those are part of the current proposal that you're making through
That's
your
correct.
application.
For the record, those are what's being proposed.
Right. Now, what about the options 1 through 4? Are those options that the applicant is willing to undertake?
We prepared that in response to your request of what else could be done. And so we did find, like I said, this property has been reworked quite a bit over the years. So there's opportunities for improvements. At what point do you, we reduce the impacts to 0 and continue to increase the mitigation. I feel that it's substantial. Compared to the many, many projects I work on, this is substantial improvements.
So substantial improvements without thinking about options 1 through 4 is what I think you're saying.
These are within options 1 through 4. We just didn't do everything within options 1 through 4. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And I think I would say that some of what was part of the, if we'll call it 1 through 4, will happen naturally. For example, the removal of the structures in that area will naturally improve the wetlands. It's just, as far as what we're putting forward as our buffer enhancements, that is what's shown on Mr. Kenny's wetland restoration and buffer improvement plans.
Well, thank you for providing those additional ideas as requested. Thank you. I think Miss Holland had a question. Oh, Miss Sanford.
Yes, hi, Mr. Kenny. In terms of, you're doing a lot of planting of trees, native plants, and all the vegetation along the water course. What is the plan in terms of maintenance and preventing the expansion of any invasives and maintaining these new plantings?
So on the 3rd sheet that we did submit to you, which isn't in the slideshow, but has been provided to you, I think it goes back as far as the initial submission in December. That includes a fair amount of information, what we titled Wetland and Buffer Habitat Enhancement Specification. So it specifies how the work will be completed, and then it includes a maintenance and monitoring and reporting section at the end of those, where it talks about after the plants, all the work has been done, there'll be a 3-year maintenance and monitoring program. Some of these areas certainly will be maintained beyond that, but they'll be monitoring and reporting to you what we propose for 3 years. And we find that once you have cover well established, then the potential for invasives becomes much less. There will always need to be management in the world we live in today. You have to do some management. We focus on planting trees to get shade because the more shade we have, the less pressure we have from invasives. You still have some invasives, but not as bad as in full sun environments. In full sun environments, you want to cut the meadows once or twice a year as a way to control invasives, get the forest reestablished over time, and then doing much less of that. So we do have a 3-year program to get our soil surface well covered with native vegetation and thereby control the amount of invasives that would come in. But for the meadow areas, we would have mowing or cutting once or twice a year after that to manage those. And where we have the trees, just keep allowing the trees to flourish. Primary thing would be to keep vines from growing on them. I would focus the energy on controlling vine growth so that the trees can grow and cast a lot of shade.
And will the plan include extensive watering in the first 3 to 6 months?
Watering?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Well, we have right in here under maintenance that it'll be part of a contract with a contractor that they're going to be responsible for watering and ensuring the plants survive. And I expect you have a condition that says you're going to want to report in 1 or 2 years that says the plants have survived at a certain threshold.
Okay, thank you.
For those of you that were looking for, this is the 3rd page of Mr. Kenny's plans that has
Yeah.
the details that he was referencing.
Ms. Holland?
Mr. Kenny, Kathleen Holland for the record, going back to let's call it the flat wetlands where you're going to be doing the restoration, in addition to the other end where you added some additional restoration next to the existing meadow. You had indicated that those areas, upon restoration, will be able to have more control floodwater in a better manner. Currently, topographically, the existing flooding conditions that probably occur, some of that flooding does go on to neighboring properties just because the topographic information. My question is, upon your restoration of those areas, are you still containing any floodwaters within this property? So I wouldn't want you to worsen a neighbor's topographical flooding that they may be having. Can you speak to that? It's a little bit.
Right. It's my professional opinion that there will be less floodwaters leaving the property with the completion of this work.
Thank you.
Does commission members have any more questions for Mr. Kenny? If not, sorry, Ms. Holland does.
I just have one comment, Kathleen Holland for the record. Going back to Commissioner Sanford's questioning on the conservation easement and open space requirements, just for clarification, you may already know this, those are standards set within the subdivision regulations. So, okay, just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So we'll turn it back to Attorney Sabatakis. I beg your pardon.
No problem. I want, as discussed, I wanted to speak with you briefly about some of the alternatives that had been reviewed by the applicant prior to setting forth the application that was submitted. As Mr. DeAndrea outlined for you, and as I outlined for you at the last hearing, we do not believe that this proposal constitutes a significant impact on the wetlands. Therefore, we don't believe the commission needs to make a finding that there are no feasible and prudent alternatives. However, as you have asked us to review the alternatives we considered, we would like to do so. But as stated, I do believe that you will agree that what we've proposed is the best and most prudent access layout. And again, that is what we're discussing here, is the access layout for these lots. And so since we're really just talking about the access points for lots 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, because those are the ones that we are proposing to access off of the shared driveway. 1, 2, 3, and 4, which are up off of Brookwood Lane, are not being accessed by the shared driveway, and there's no wetlands impact from those proposed lots. So the first idea that we had for lots 7, 8, and 9 was actually using the gravel driveway. That's part of what Mr. Kinney has referred to as the driveway that's being taken out to improve the wetlands. I will say we met at the site with, and the first thing she said was absolutely not get rid of this driveway. So we did. The next concept that we looked at was what's I've got shown us on slide 15, which actually shifted the driveway down towards that wetlands, eliminated the existing caretaker's cottage, and put all of lots 7, 8, and 9 to the west of the driveway. We decided that this was not the best option for a couple reasons. First of all, although these lots all do meet zoning requirements, it felt like we were squeezing a bit too much into these wetlands areas. And we also, after spending some time with the property, utilizing that the caretaker's house as sort of the meeting spot, if we'll call it that, while we've been working on the property, realized that that house is in very good condition and there's no reason to take that house down. So that's one of the reasons why we don't want to move the driveway and cut through that existing building. The other alternative that we looked at, and oh, sorry, I forgot I had this slide 16 here, which sort of goes into a little greater detail, that proposal of moving the driveway through where the caretaker's cottage is and creating new 7, 8, and 9. The next proposal that we looked at, which is on slide 17, was removal of the driveway entirely, and would have 2 new access ways. Lot 7 would be accessed directly off of Brookwood. There would be a new shared driveway for lots 8 and 9 through the center of the property, and a new driveway off of the end of Brookwood Lane to access lots 5 and 6. This is probably, if our driveway didn't exist on the east side of the property, this is probably the proposal we would have come forward with. This is the most direct access to each of these lots. However, this requires quite a bit of new driveways, more than 2,000 square feet of new driveway in previously undisturbed areas, and the removal of an existing driveway. In this alternative, we end up with this area, which, as you can see, is undisturbed and well forested. We would need to remove approximately 36 trees and perform new regrading, and this would all be within the upland review area. You can see in this photo here, this is the water course, which currently is, there's nothing in this area, no pavement, no asphalt. For the access to lots 5 and 6, which is up at the end of Brookwood Lane, there would similarly need to be a great deal of tree removal. We're estimating approximately 91 trees. We would also end up with a second driveway adjacent to where the neighbors have a driveway up there. So we believe, particularly with the current revisions to the plans, which have 0 wetlands elimination, that we've addressed the concerns of the commission. We've addressed the fire marshal's concerns. We've added a new fire access point, a new hydrant. We have, as I stated before, this has been reviewed by the health department, the town engineer. They've issued their approval, and we've also made improvements based on the comments that we've received from SE Minor. We think that this is a better, a good proposal, probably better than what we initially came forward with, but we do think that continuing to utilize the existing driveway remains the most prudent way to access the lots within the subdivision. Like I said, it simply just doesn't make a lot of sense to remove an existing driveway simply to build new roadways through currently undisturbed areas, removing the trees and having new impacts. Like as Mr. DeAndrea stated, what we've proposed for the driveway goes well beyond what is required under any of the drainage maintenance plans and will in fact improve the wetlands in the area, improve the water quality through the area. And therefore we ask that the commission approve the plan as submitted.
Thank you very much. So questions from commission members?
Yes, so
Mr. Redden?
Commissioner Redden, for the record, so I understand the last alternative, that if there was no driveway, that would be what you would propose. I get that. And I understand, removing the existing driveway, all very good points. Can you go back to slide 15 and 16? Because that alternative, I think that's the same alternative, correct? It's just a detail?
Correct. Yes. When I was presenting, I should have switched down to 16 earlier.
So so if I'm looking at this correctly, that looks like less work because you're not curving into by where the little bridge is. You're just changing the entrance and kind of connecting right to the existing driveway. Correct?
I wouldn't say less work. I mean, there's still a relocation of the driveway in this presentation. If you can see the outlines of on slide 16, you can see the outlines of the existing driveway. And
just so where you have a potential house, the driveway off to the right on lot 7. That's where it connects to the existing, correct?
It connects to the existing, if you look up at the screen, sort of just beyond where the potential driveway would be on the new house, just south of that.
Right, and on the proposal, I want to go back because they're not, that's connecting roughly at the same place, just with a bigger curve, no? If I look at the apex of the curve from your proposal. Well, I'm just looking at any of the slides that show the actual plan. Slide 4, for example, shows the entrance. In fact, go to slide 4. If you look at the entrance and where the hydrant would be, and then going back from the hydrant to where it turns to go under the road.
Yeah, so
Right, so right there, isn't that about where the alternative that's presented on 15 and 16? Isn't that where the driveway comes in? Same spot?
Not quite.
No, he doesn't mean
Not
here.
there.
That's not what he's asking about. He's asking where does it connect down here?
Oh, yeah, I can't tell that from here, but here's the existing.
Right. I think, without actually overlaying the two, I don't know that but it's not far off. I'll state that.
Yeah, so I'm
but I can't really
just curious. So
answer that
you're
question specifically.
you're removing more. So for me, your alternative on 15 and 16 just look more like a straighter shot.
Right. And
Right,
so
just-
I guess I would say, again, we're not,
Is that so you protect lot 7? Is that why you want the curve in your proposal?
so we're not removing or adding more or less between the two. It's about, like you said, they're connecting at a relatively similar spot, and we can work on an overlay of those two. But
to add is although we've moved away from that head wall for the stream, we're closer to that other wetland. Maybe there's a happy medium.
Right, so is it, so the oak tree, I went back, so thank you for bringing me back there. So does that proposal require removing that 400 years oak? Is that what that is?
So I think that this proposal goes far enough away that now, as Mr. Kenny pointed out, now we're getting closer to the other, the wetlands on the other side.
On the north.
I do think we're far enough away that we're beyond the oak. What this does is we lose that caretaker's cottage because it's no longer in a conforming location. And it squeezes lots 8 and 9.
Yeah, understand. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Angela Jameson for the record. So I'm looking at slide 17, which you said, had there not been existing driveways, is probably what you would have come forward with. If you were to actually have the access way as shown in slide 17, would you still need to have an easement to the pond for fire truck access?
Well, yes, I mean, we show on here the proposed turnaround that would be required for fire truck access. Providing that dry well and the pipe for the town fire department is something that was requested by the fire marshal for the good of the whole neighborhood, which currently does not have sufficient fire hydrants. So yes, that would still be needed. We don't show on here where the pipe out to the street would go, but I think we would be able to still be able to fit that in as well.
But you wouldn't need such a long access way for the trucks to the pond, to the dry hydrant as under the existing proposal.
Right. So the access to the dry hydrant would be along that shared driveway area. I will point out that access to dry wells for the fire department is an as of right use under the wetlands regulations.
Right, but I'm just trying to compare the impact in terms of, disturbed area, your proposal versus this potential alternative. And it seems like that long driveway that needs to be there so that fire trucks can get up to the pond wouldn't be necessary under this alternative.
So what you're referring to as a driveway to the pond is not a driveway. Let's be clear. It's an easement. We will need to remove any trees that are in that area so that the fire trucks can get in and out, but it will not be paved.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and Mr. DeAndrea.
So, Len DeAndrea again. What I don't like about this alternative that we're looking at right now, again, is when I think about the access that the fire marshal desires, this doesn't look right. It would look out of place to put such a circle next to the pond. What we're doing right now is we have, I don't like to call it the grass creep, but this matrix that you put down to give them the solid base. The grass grows through it. You can plant on either side of it. And then you go down, there's not a turnaround down there. They're going to go down and back out. And again, that use is only in times of emergency. This, at this location here, would end up probably being a asphalt circle.
So just to be clear, you're saying that this would probably require some kind of turnaround circle at the end of the red line on the left.
We've had long discussions, yes. We've worked our design so that 2 fire trucks can be down this driveway that we're proposing now. And then one could be down at the dry hydrant and another fire vehicle can come down there. So there's nice, easy passing back and forth. In this case here, in order to make that work, just go back to what we were showing you for the circle. That's the circle we needed to let the fire trucks turn in one motion. And then it just looks so out of place here. Plus, there's a grade differential we have to deal with.
Okay, so my next question relates to the driveway at the west, sort of parallel to the existing driveway off Brookwood Lane. I think that's the west, right at the top of slide 17. So is there absolutely no possibility that you could share the existing driveway off Brookwood Lane to provide access to lots 5 and 6, rather than having to build a second parallel drive?
We have not had any communications with the neighbors down there. If you have been in that area, there's quite a bit of grade change. I don't think that it would be feasible. But that's certainly if we needed to, we could have those communications. I certainly don't think that the neighbors, there are quite a few houses along there. I don't think that the neighbors would be would want to add more homes if it could be avoided. You know, they prefer to keep the buffer area there. And like I said, their driveways, there it goes down to their properties, whereas this property is higher.
But it just would, you would end up then with 2 parallel driveways.
Correct, which is one of the other reasons why this is not our preferred alternative and is why we're proposing the alternative where the physical access to all of these lots is off of the existing shared driveway.
Haven't had any discussions with the neighbors about potentially buying into that private driveway?
No, we haven't, because it just doesn't seem prudent and feasible for the access to these 2 lots.
Thank you. Further questions on the alternatives? Okay, well, unless there's anything that the applicant's team would like to add at this point, I suggest that we call on the town hall staff, the town engineer, and the fire marshal to provide us with our comments, their comments on the additional information we have received. Thank you. So maybe we could start with town engineer, Ms. Coplet.
Good evening, Maria Coplet for the record. As was discussed last month, the original drainage analysis for the access way was evaluated to be consistent with our town of New Canaan drainage policy. The proposed modifications presented tonight further refine the analysis, which remains in adherence with our policy. The changes proposed allow for surface mitigation adjacent to the existing driveway, replacing all but one subsurface infiltration system with surface micropool basins. While considered an equal stormwater management measure to an infiltration system, micropool basins have the added benefit of providing areas for supportive wetland adjacent plantings and wildlife habitats. The catch basin inserts are approved pretreatment measures, allowing for pollutant removals upstream of the micropools, swale, and wetlands. In conclusion, the applicant has satisfactorily demonstrated adherence to our policy and has further provided additional water quality benefits for an existing paved infrastructure designed to be modified to serve the proposed future subdivision. I concur with Ms. Sabatakis that the current design has been improved from the original submission.
Thank you very much. Do commission members have any questions for Ms. Coplet? Ms. Holland?
It's unusual, but I don't have any questions. Sorry. Sorry, Maria.
So that was very clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And perhaps now we could call upon Fire Marshal Payne, who I believe has joined us via Zoom for his comments on the modifications.
Good evening, Paul Payne, New Canaan Fire Marshal. As Mr. DeAndrea had stated a few weeks ago, we held another site visit discussing this particular alternative. The Fire protection specialist attended as well. Let's start at the pond. We measured the pond very conservatively, and the calculations for that came out to about 600,000 gallons of water. At the pond, there would be a dry hydrant. We would commit an engine that would draft out of the pond and then charge the pipe shown from the pond heading north to the road and then following the roadbed out to Brookwood Lane to a fire hydrant. This hydrant system would be duct iron. It would be the same material that you'd find in a hydrant system in town, an Aquarian hydrant system, or a First District Water Company hydrant system. The added benefit to this in particular would be that we could get more water out of it, because we can actually pump between 1,000 and 1,500 gallons a minute. We do not have any, so Mr. DeAndrea sent me an email today telling me that he did do the calculations for the turning of our largest apparatus and everything seems to work. So if that being the case, the fire marshal's office and the fire department do not object to this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the commission have any questions for the fire marshal? Ms. Holland?
Kathleen Holland for the record. Fire Marshal Payne, would you just be able to comment on the varying widths of the proposed accessway with 18 and down to 14, and whether or not the fire department had any comments regarding the proposal to have varying widths on that length of the proposed accessway?
It's obviously not ideal. We do understand the wetlands constraints. My understanding is it doesn't get narrow until after the access to the dry hydrant, which in that case, we're really only dealing with 3 more lots. When we're coming down that road, obviously we're not leaving the road. If there's another vehicle coming the other way, they would have to get off the road or back into the turnaround. But Chief and I discussed this and really don't have an issue with it.
Thank you.
If no more questions for Fire Marshal, then it's time to ask the interveners to come and provide their comments. Thank you very much. Sure, I've had a request for a quick 5-minute break, so that will give you time to get set up. So we'll be back at 8:46. Thank you. Great, so thank you very much. Turn it over now to SE Minor and team.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman. Gigi Ma, CEO of SE Minor, on behalf of the interveners here. I'm joined tonight by Attorney Adam Blank, who in addition to his extensive land use experience, also served as chairperson of the P&Z Commission for Norwalk, where he was a commission member for over a decade. We're also joined remotely by Patricia Sesto. If you recall, Ms. Sesto served as wetland director for both Greenwich and Wilton over a 2-decade period and was a commission member for the Ridgefield Wetland Commission. She joins us tonight. In that context, she has reviewed and evaluated hundreds, if not thousands, of wetland applications, and not only understand how it looks on from a proposed perspective, but how they're actually implemented and some of the things that may have been missed at the application level during implementation. In summary, we're here because we believe that this project definitely meets the threshold of may have a significant impact according to the wetland regulations, as well as to discuss and highlight some of the things that the applicant may have missed in terms of impacts on the wetlands. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Attorney Adam Blank.
Good evening. So as Gigi said, I'm a lawyer with Wapsie Rosen in Stamford, and I've been retained by the interveners predominantly really to monitor these proceedings, and I've taken a back seat. You haven't sort of really seen or heard from me until now. We've left it to the experts to deal with this stage of the application proceedings. And I'm not going to comment really substantively on the applications, but I do want to kind of go over the sort of procedural framework that we're dealing with and what you're tasked with, because I know you've now seen, I think you should have a letter from my office, although I think it's signed by Zach Phillips. I was out last week. And you've got a couple memos from Bertram Moses and the town attorney. And in some ways, I'm going to try to harmonize those for you. And in some ways, there are some differences, but I kind of want to overview what I believe is the law. And I think we've given you some legal authority, and I'll provide some additional about sort of your role here. Because there's been talk about adverse impacts and significant impacts, and there's some differences. So the significant impact is your first step is there a significant impact? And it's not you have to find that there will be one. Your regs, and it's laid out right in your regs, which mirrors the statute. Most of the language is, will there be or might there be a significant impact? And then it gives you some criteria for that. And it uses the words likely to cause or has the potential to cause. You don't have to, the initial step is not, will this have an adverse impact? Will this have a significant impact? It's mighted. If the answer to that is it might, then it's a significant impact application, which triggers a public hearing under that criteria. And it requires the applicant to submit any feasible and prudent alternatives they have to the application that's in front of you, or it requires the applicant to establish for you that there are no feasible or prudent alternatives. And so the first step is there a significant impact? And as you're considering that, or may there be a significant impact? And we believe that the answer to that is there is and there may be, and that takes you to a significant impact application and a necessity for looking at feasible and prudent alternatives. And again, in my letter that went to you, we do cite pretty extensive case law on that, and you're laid right out in your regs. That's verbatim in your regs. You don't have to establish that there will be. It's just that there might be. That's the significant impact initial criteria. When you're doing that analysis, another issue that's then come up is, well, this is just for a road and a 9-lot subdivision. Don't. There's not going to be houses. Don't look at anything else. It's this, we're segmenting this application, and we really want to focus you on this little thing in front of you. And you can't look at all of the impacts of all of the applications that are necessarily certainly coming. They're not asking for 7 lots or 6 lots or 5 lots. They're asking for 9 lots. They don't need this access road. They don't need this driveway unless it's going to serve 9 lots, the 9 lots that they're asking for, with 9 single-family homes built on it. The case law, and it's right in the reg, is that you absolutely are. Now, they don't have to apply now for all of that. They don't, and you can't make them apply for everything. But what you absolutely have an obligation to consider is based on this application, and what are the inevitable consequences of it, what the inevitable next steps are, what impacts are those likely to have on the wetlands? And if there are likely impacts, you absolutely can consider those today. It's literally in the statute itself, future activities associated with or reasonably related to the proposed regulated activity, which are made inevitable by the proposed regulated activity and which may have an impact on wetlands or water courses. And I just read that straight from the statute. There's case law on this as well. The Connecticut Superior Court, dealing with an application, not similar to this, but it was what I'm calling a segmented or bifurcated application where they have multiple applications to get the end goal that they desire, which in this case is nine new homes. The Superior Court in the Sardacny versus Griswold Inland Wetlands, they sought approval to regrade the property and construct 2 gravel pads for development with the driveway. In the appeal, the applicant, which was the developer, and that one said, well, we were only seeking approval for excavation and filling, not for the future development, which is correct. And therefore, the commission should not be allowed to evaluate the impacts of any potential future development. And the court disagreed and said where you break an application into stages, you can consider the impacts of the entire projects. And the exact language from the court was, in cases like the present one, where the next stage of development is intimated in the application, the commission's obligated, it's not optional, you're obligated under, it's that statute 22A 41A6, to the extent that you're able to scrutinize future activity made inevitable by the proposed activity, which may have an impact on the wetlands or water courses. A commission should not ignore potential impacts of future developments. So, you should be asking what are the real impacts of this application that's in front of us, not the limited, this is just an access drive and a 9-lot subdivision. What's the total impacts going to be of this project as contemplated? And again, we think that both that's a significant impact and that it will have adverse impact on the wetlands. So as I started before, if you find that there is or maybe a significant impact, right, then the applicant has to propose reasonable and prudent or feasible and prudent alternatives or establish that none exist. Okay, that again is on the developer. It's not on the intervener. It's not on you folks to come up with ideas of your own. And the case law is clear that the answer to that question doesn't have to be that, well, you could reshape a driveway or just create access in a slightly different manner. It could be changing lot lines completely, but it also could be eliminating lots. 9 is not going to work. Maybe 6 will, but 9 won't. And in Mute versus Town of Litchfield, again, the Connecticut Superior Court, a 14-lot subdivision application was proposed to the Inland Wetland Commission. In that case, actually, the interveners did submit they said, hey, this ought to be 6 lots. And they proposed a 6-lot alternative, which, and the applicant didn't accept that. And the commission denied the application because it found that the 6-lot subdivision was in fact a prudent and feasible alternative. You don't have to get, if they're asking for 9 lots, you don't have to give them 9 lots. It can be that the prudent and feasible alternative might in fact be a lower number of lots. I think, I hope that I've clarified, not made things cloudier for you. But again, you should be considering the full impacts of what's really in front of you, which is to construct 9 new homes. It absolutely meets the significant impact test under your regulations. And then you need to consider whether there in fact will be adverse impacts on the wetlands, whether you've actually been submitted with any prudent and feasible alternatives or whether there are in fact none. And I believe that although they provided a couple of alternatives, they led with, we considered these and rejected these. These are not prudent and feasible alternatives. These are ideas that are even worse than what we've presented to you. That doesn't quite meet the test for a prudent and feasible alternative. We're asking for better, not worse. So that's my overview. Happy to answer questions if you do, but otherwise then I'll turn it back to Pat to talk a little more substantively about the application.
So for the record, this is Angela Jameson, Attorney Blank. Thank you very much indeed for your comments, and we will ponder upon them. But I just want everyone to be aware that at the next meeting of Inland Wetland, we will have the town attorney available to walk us through the issues that we need to grapple with as a commission and the decision tree. And in the meantime, I recommend to everyone to take a look at the memos that he has written on that subject, as well as on the two-step process for subdivisions that are posted to the website. With that said, do any commission members have any questions for Attorney Blank?
A comment, if I may.
Sure.
Commissioner Redden, for the record, and Madam Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the memo, and I appreciate everything you just said, and we hear you loud and clear, but I keep hearing it's inevitable that there's going to be 9 single-family homes. We're here to look at the proposed access, and then every one of those buildings, if they are being built, we'll come back to this commission in planning and zoning. So we're really only looking at the access way, and we keep hearing it's inevitable. Somebody might buy the whole lot after this is put in, or combine 2 lots or 3. So it's not inevitable. I know you're making that assumption.
But and I don't mean to, I'm not trying to be argumentative.
No worries, I got it.
I disagree that I understand your point. I believe it is inevitable. I think we just disagree about whether that's inevitable or not. I mean, they're not asking for 6. I think it's inevitable. I hear you. I would also just, to the Madam Chair's initial remarks, I don't know what Attorney Gelderman will tell you folks, but I would say that I have seen his memos. They do have some opinions. They don't have case law. They have one site that's not related to what we've gone through. So if to the extent that it differs from what I've told you, I would ask where he's getting that from, because I don't think it would be supported by the reg, the statute, or the case law.
Got it. Thank you.
Kathleen Holland, for the record, thank you for your information you provided this evening. I think one of the statements that you made is, it's the commission's duty to scrutinize future activities to the extent you are able to do so. I think that's an important thing to the commissioners to take into consideration. And I know you also said that you have sort of been the background on this in previous testimony that's been provided to the commission members from various folks here. I did review, sort of what is the commission's process going forward as far as commenting on individual lots. So the commission is looking at the subdivision globally, if you will, and they are aware, just so you know, this was previous testimony that was provided, they are aware that they are able to provide individual comments or things for the Planning and Zoning Commission to consider if they felt that a lot might not be suitable for one reason or another. So that has been discussed in previous testimony that was provided.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to turn it back to Ms. Ma and team, and look forward to hearing the next set of comments.
Sure. Pat, I turn it over to you.
Terrific. Hello. Thank you all for entertaining our comments this evening. One of the things I did want to just start out for clarification, this determination of significant activity, as you know from our previous correspondence, is big. In the regulations, the language doesn't say, I just want to pull up, shoot. It speaks to major effect, may have a major effect. That is the language in the regulations, and that's important. There's a lot of discussion about impact, and you don't have to make the determination that there's an impact, let alone an adverse impact. It may have a major effect. I would gladly argue, and in my experience dealing with wetland applications, an application that came in to do a really good thing, restoration of a stream corridor, wetland restoration, those can and have been considered significant regulated activities. They're not considered significant impacts. They're significant regulated activities because they may have a major effect. Not positive, not negative. That's not what the language speaks to at this point in the deliberation of an application before you. So I did want to sort of bring our focus back to that very specific and important language. Also, I believe you all have received a document that we submitted today. We're appreciative of the changes that were made by the applicant and their team. We still have some outlying issues that we reflected in our memo. The changes provided don't necessarily come with narrative to make an understanding or to fill the record with an understanding that the interveners can focus on, a narrative to accompany the revised planting plan. We heard tonight more about what that is supposed to be, but that should be written into the record. An ecological assessment of the revised drainage plan. I appreciate the changes that were made, and conceptually, I don't have any issues associated with those, but I am looking to have the record demonstrate what the benefits of those changes would be. This is perhaps vitally important, a wetlands assessment to discuss the alternative submissions. That is what is necessary for the record for the commission in order to understand what the value to the wetlands are of one alternative to the next. And then also a pollutant renovation analysis to determine, does the stormwater management plan prove out what the applicant says it's going to do? And this is consistent with the watershed plan for the 5 Mile River, which does call for pollutant renovation analysis associated with improving the health of that water body, in particular via improvements to the tributaries. The applicant continues to state that there will be a reduction in impervious coverage on site, but that is a premature statement, if you will, because we know that other development is intended to come after this driveway. The discussion of what inevitable development will or will not take place on this parcel, the whole purpose of this driveway is to support those lots. And if this driveway is built and then somebody comes and purchases the whole lot or subsequent lots, then we've had a driveway built and for no purpose. To that end, I would question, I don't recall in the application documentation any sort of threshold by which this driveway gets built. Do 3 of the lots get sold? Do just the lots that support this driveway get sold before this is built? Or do we have a potential that this driveway, this common drive and all of its disturbances gets built without any potential need? So that would be certainly a point of concern. The loss of trees, we heard from Mr. Kenny tonight that areas of increased sunlight have greater potential for invasive species to flourish. There has not been discussion of the 60 some odd trees that are coming down. And those are the trees that are known to be cut. There's been no discussion and acknowledgement that trees that are at the fringe of disturbance can likewise, while not being cut, they can be fatally impacted. So 2, 3, 5 years from now, those trees could be gone because of compaction, root damage. So this accessory damage to the trees protecting the wetlands. Also, let's see, the stormwater management plan, but they're still taking credit for the net loss impervious coverage. And going back to the issue that Attorney Blank, that understanding the impacts of the subdivision as a whole in aggregate is essential to understanding the prudency of this driveway and 9 lots. We discussed the 5 Mile River Watershed Plan, and without a doubt, some aspects of this plan meet the goals of the watershed plan, but not in its entirety. There's definitely language within that watershed plan that says management of stormwater cannot just be meeting the minimum standards. If we want improvements within the tributaries and the 5 Mile River overall, we need to do better than the minimum. In fact, we need to go back and look at what the land, how it functioned prior to its development. And it was bothersome to hear the dismissal of this as being just a small piece of the overall large watershed. We only look at applications parcel by parcel. If we don't address each individual piece, then we make no headway whatsoever. Our previous comments are in the record, and we did not reiterate them this evening in written form to save a whole lot of effort on your part, our part, but just be aware that those the absence of reiterating those comments does not mean that we are satisfied with the application. In listening to the presentation by the applicant this evening, I'd like to just cover a few details and notes that came through. One of the elements that they raised was that they are using the existing driveway. They're only expanding it by 2 to 4 feet as necessary. This way of discussing it seems to suggest that we're just going to add 2 to 4 feet of pavement on one side or the other of the driveway. I think it's probably more realistic that this whole driveway is going to be ripped out and rebuilt, that this is a rebuilding, not an expansion. So the applicant, I would think the record would be stronger to have a better understanding of, is this an actual rebuild, which given the drainage considerations and infrastructure, I don't understand how it can not be a rebuild. The arborist assessment of the 36-inch oak. Oaks are fabulous trees, 36-inch oaks. That's the tree that its longevity provides value, but it has values other than that, even to the wetland. But its proximity, its health, are we making decisions to protect a tree that are not the best for the wetlands? And what is the assessment of that tree and its likelihood to survive? There's looking at the maps that have been depicted in earlier submissions and again tonight, the wetland buffer is displayed inconsistently from one to the other. And New Canaan has certainly a thorough description of different buffer configurations. I've not understood from the applicant's documentation or from the commission itself, what is the buffer that we're working with? So that would be helpful to understand. And the discussion with the alternatives of saving the 91 trees to the west, saving the cottage, while those are nice goals, good goals, generally speaking, there's no guarantee that the future homeowners of the cottage won't just rip that down and build something new, that those 91 trees will in fact stay put. I think they are, again, depending on the buffer, assigned to the lots. Those are outside of the upland review area, and those trees could go just as a matter of course, somebody who wants more lawn, who wants access to build a pool. There's no guarantee that those trees will remain. So again, making decisions with some perceived assurance or expectation that certain upland features will stay is troublesome because we don't have those guarantees. So those are just some, there's somewhat disjointed, my apologies for that, but just taking notes through the applicant's presentation this evening. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sesto. I'd just like to ask you and the rest of the interveners team, in the letter that we received today from SE Minor, signed by Ms. Sesto and Mr. Sandolo, you made the point that given the submission date of the new material from the applicants, you hadn't had the opportunity to complete a detailed review. Is that something that you would like to be able to do and to present your detailed comments at the next meeting of the Inland Wetlands Commission? Or do you feel that you've been able to actually draw everything together satisfactorily to convey to us this evening where you stand on the new material?
We would like the opportunity to more thoroughly review what was submitted last week, as well as the attorney's positions that were submitted. So yes, I would very clearly, we have more to say.
So thank you for opining on that. I mean, we don't like to continue to extend the hearings because, you know, there's always something that that can be said following what somebody else has just commented. But I do think, I mean, this material was submitted only in the last day or so. So I think it is only fair to give the interveners the opportunity to present in more detail at a subsequent meeting. And I think this underlines the importance of material being submitted on a timely basis so that everybody gets the chance to review it ahead of a commission meeting. So in that letter from SE Minor, there were 4 things that were cited as elements of what SE Minor considers a complete application that were not actually available, in your view, in the material submitted by the interveners. 1, a narrative to accompany the revised planting plan. 2, an ecological assessment of the revised drainage plan. 3, a wetlands assessment to discuss the 1 alternative submission. 4, a pollutant renovation analysis to demonstrate the efficacy of the proposed stormwater management plan. And I'd just like to ask the applicant whether they would be willing to provide answers to those 4 areas.
Yeah, probably come to.
Amy Zabatakis, Ruchi Law Group for the applicant. So yes, we received SE Minor's letter today and had a chance to review it, and we'll go through that. I don't think that all of the items that are listed on there are actually required under the town's zoning regulations, but certainly if there are specific items that the commission would like us to further elaborate on, we would be happy to do so.
Yep, thank you. I think Ms. Holland has some comments on that score.
Kathleen Holland for the record. In review of the SE Minor letter and looking at those 4 specific items, I think item number 1 is a definite a narrative outlining the revised planting plan would be helpful, and some of DeAndre did provide a narrative on their changes, so that was helpful to us in deciphering the revisions and the plans that had been provided. Number 2 probably could be up for discussion, in my opinion. The ecological assessment of the revised drainage plan, the I think perhaps they may be, are they, I guess the question is, are they asking for where the new micro pools are being established? And I didn't think if that's what they're asking for, that would be necessary because they're not being constructed in a wetlands. So I mean, it's adjacent to a wetlands. I don't know, but just sort of up for discussion on that one, I would think. A wetland assessment discussed the one alternative plan. You actually provided a few alternative plans tonight. A memo of in some form, I think would be helpful to the commission members to further understand why those alternatives, in your opinion, do not work for your submittal in helping the commission make a comprehensive decision. And number 4, I did not get a chance to speak with the town engineer on. I was going to shift that over to her, so that maybe that's up for discussion as well, up for review.
Can I just ask the Commissioner Holland if, so that we don't continue a cycle and take up more of your time, if I might ask that those materials be provided, I'll leave you to your judgment, but a reasonable period in advance of the next time we'll be on agenda, so that we won't be telling you that we haven't had a chance to review them.
Well, thank you very much, Attorney Blank, for that that comment and request. We always do strive to have the materials submitted in a timely fashion. The next meeting of the Inland Wetlands Commission is April 7th. So there isn't as much time as normal for anyone to prepare additional information. But you know, we would ask the applicant, to the extent that they're willing to provide additional information, to try and get that posted online sufficiently ahead of April 7th so that it can be reviewed by everybody.
And I guess I would add on that point, the revisions to our submission were submitted on March 14th, which was just 10 days ago. So I would hope that the interveners, to the extent that they have any comments, that could be submitted in advance of the 7th as well, so that we have time to review those, as all of the statements to date from the interveners have been more in the more general terms. And I can get into that a little bit more when we have a chance to speak again, but it's been quite generalized and has basically been stating that more information is needed. So if they do have actual comments on the plans, it would be very helpful to receive those, as noted, to the extent that there were some specific comments made in the past regarding filtration. We did incorporate that into our plan. So we do want this to be the best plan possible.
No, and I mean, duly noted, same thing applies to everybody. Everyone needs the opportunity to review material well ahead of time. Do we want to perhaps establish a deadline for submission? Given that the meeting is on the 7th, what would you suggest, Director Holland?
That's 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now.
That's a tough one to split. 7 days.
If we had, it's really tight. I mean, March 31st
Do you want to put this on?
Oh, sorry. March 31st would be one date. And yeah. Let's just see what they say.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have a response on the 31st, because I still think I'm not exactly clear on what exact additional information is being asked of us at this time.
Right. Fair point. I think number 1 is pretty clear. Would you agree with that, Attorney?
A narrative on the planting plan. Yes. So we provided a narrative of from the engineer. We can provide a narrative from Mr. Kenny that something in more detail than the last page of his report is what you would like to see.
Yes, please. And I think it's good to have something in writing for the record.
Yes. I guess I'm just asking because there is, in as Mr. Kenny pointed out, his report does have the last page, which goes into great detail as far as the planting. So, but if there's something more that you'd like.
So it's similar to what DeAndrea did, similar style, 8.5 by 11, and he can simply cut and paste. So it's sort of very clearly defined. I think even Madam Chairman was wondering what's being proposed now. So that would be super helpful to really lay it out and spell it more clearly.
Sure.
Number 2, up for discussion, an ecological assessment of the revised drainage plan. Do commission members have a view on whether that would be helpful or not? Director Holland, do you have a point of view here?
If I may.
I think so.
So the information that would be helpful associated with the drainage plan, it's certainly the proximity of the micro pools, et cetera, adjacent to the wetland still has a potential impact on the wetland, but discussions of changes in volume, changes in peak, infiltration of how the water enters the wetland now versus how it would post-development. That's the foundation of the wetlands review, is understanding how the drainage plan works. And then the pollutant renovation analysis would give better understanding as to what level of phosphorus is being attenuated. There were improvements associated with first flush, the attenuation of hydrocarbons and the like. It is important to hear from Mr. Kenny as far as wetland function and impact, how these things relate to the wetland and water courses themselves.
So on item 2, I heard some testimony this evening from both Mr. DeAndrea and Mr. Kenny on sort of the functioning of the micro pool and the critters. And so there were definitely some things that had been introduced briefly, albeit, but and the overall functioning of the micro pools and the drainage systems, I think, have been well prepared and explained throughout the process. If there's something additional the applicant can provide, I'm not certain. I'm not totally certain what that would be.
Does anybody else have a point of view on this?
I would just ask the interveners, because on number 2, we got the document from you before Mr. Kenny presented tonight. So did that cover part of what you were looking for?
Certainly that Mr. Kenny's testimony tonight was helpful, for sure.
Okay.
Well, that said, then
Thank you.
maybe we don't need to cover 2 unless anybody feels very strongly about it on the commission. And number 3, a wetlands assessment of the alternative submissions. I think it would be helpful, as Ms. Holland said, to have a memo that actually discusses that. I mean, I think the presentation was very helpful, but that was all verbal. Sure. So maybe to summarize that in the narrative would be helpful. Number 4, up for discussion, and a suggestion that we should ask the town engineer to opine on this. So turning it over to Ms. Coplet.
Good evening. Thank you, Maria Coplet again for the record. I believe that a summary of a detail of each of the proposed measures with its typical pollutant removal rates for some of the key pollutants, total suspended solids, phosphorus, nitrogen, et cetera, would be warranted, but that would be based on the acceptable removal rates per each of those measures. So it could be a summary of a list of each of the measures, their typical removal rates and the area that's, the general area that's the drainage area for each of those measures.
So in theory, the engineering proposal that's being developed will meet the standards. Is that, so is that?
Yes, each of those measures
So-
has different typical pollutant removal rates. Some have higher total suspended solids removal rates. Some, are good for plant nutrient uptake. So you'll have phosphorus or nitrogen removals. So that will break that all down. Just so you know that the 5 mile, the TMDL, is for total suspended solids. So that will be the one that I am kind of going to be most focusing on. But I also know based on each of the measures that are proposed, the total suspended removal rates are anywhere from 40 to 80%. So I'm confident that they have met their pollutant removal, but I have no objection to it being spelled out in front of you all based on each of the individual measures.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Attorney Sabikis, is that something that the applicant would be prepared to provide?
Let me just check with the team since I won't be
Sure.
doing any of this.
She's just the
Savvy talkers, yeah.
That's the state of the hemp, right?
I think that's what we're saying.
Yes, we can have that to you by the 31st.
So thank you very much. So just to recap, you will get to us items 1, 3, and 4 by March 31st.
Correct.
Thank you very much. And also, I'd just like to ask the interveners to confirm that they will get their detailed review to us by March 31st.
Well, I think if they get their information, they'll need a couple
Yeah,
days,
That's true.
maybe to finalize their
Yeah.
review.
I mean, I
So-
think they have our plans. This
Well, I
is
mean,
just some
It's the
additional
additional stuff, yeah.
information.
Yeah.
I think as far as any comments they have on the plans, they have them already and should be able to get something by the.
So on the
31st.
existing information, yeah. So on the existing information, by March 31st, any of these 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 4.
1, 3, 4.
1, 3, 4, 1, 3, and 4. What date do you want to set for that? Because if
Yeah.
So
March.
by the 31st would be comments on what you presented,
Existing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then
I would say by the 3rd of April. Does that sound reasonable?
second,
Second?
because we have to get it out, we have to
Okay.
distribute it, you guys have to read it. So I would say.
Okay, April 2nd. Thank you.
I guess I would say that we'll certainly do our best to respond by the 2nd to whatever we receive from the interveners on the 31st, but without knowing
Right.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear what we'll be providing on the 31st without knowing what they will provide to us. I might need to ask for a little extra time on that.
Right.
That's fair, I forgot about that.
So just to be clear, I thought we were talking about the interveners providing additional information by April 2nd, not the applicant.
So
I think if we don't get I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go
I
ahead.
apologize, but our revisions were submitted on the 14th. I think that the interveners should be able to provide any substantive comments on our application by the 31st so that we have an opportunity to respond to them. I think I think that if we wait until the 2nd, I do think we're asking for this to continue on longer than necessary.
Right, but the deadline for the 2nd is only in relation to any additional comments based upon your narrative on items 1, 3, and 4. And if those aren't submitted until March 31st, I don't see how the interveners could respond to those.
Correct. I thought we were saying the 31st for their substantive comments and then the 2nd would be for anyone's
Yes.
anyone's responses to what they've received. And I guess what I'm saying is that I will try with my team by the 2nd to respond to whatever comes in from the interveners on the 31st. But I'm just saying, I'm without knowing what it is.
Yeah, so the applicant is put in the position of replying to a full review by the interveners in only 2 days. And so that's what she's saying.
Yeah.
So, Gigi, I know you've had some staffing issues and whatnot, but are you guys, can you have your reports in this week? To the
31st.
So is there nothing in the works at this point? To Amy's point, you guys have had the documents since March 14th.
Yeah, we'll endeavor to get it done by Friday.
Okay, Friday is the 28th.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And then on the 31st, this team, the applicant will provide 1, 3, and 4, and then distribute it to everyone as soon as I get it in my hollow hands. It goes out to everyone. If there's
And I guess I would say we all have one another's contact information at this point. We can make sure to, hopefully everyone can CC the various experts and attorneys so that we don't need to worry about.
Well, I
Kathleen,
don't want to miss
being otherwise
anything that
engaged.
I'm legally required to do. So thank you for that. If they get it twice, that's great.
That's great too.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we have settled on the logistic questions. Does the commission have any questions for Ms. Sesto based upon her comments just now? Okay, thank you. So Ms. Ma, do you have any additional comments this evening for us?
We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time.
Okay, very good. So I'd just like to see if there are any members of the general public with us here in the room or on Zoom who would like to offer any comments this evening. If you're on Zoom, please raise your virtual hand.
I do not have anyone. No. So, do you want to poll the commissioners for April 7th? Make sure that we have.
Yeah, we should do that. So April 7th is the regular meeting of the Inland Wetlands Commission. Just like to see which members of the commission are going to be available. Maybe let's go down the line. So Phil, yes. Beth?
I'm not sure. I have a conflict. See if I can change it.
Right. Mr. Redden?
Yes.
Okay. I can. Mr. Ramirez?
Yes.
Miss Owsley? Okay, great. So it looks like we have a quorum, and then we will also canvass the commission members, check with the commission members who aren't here today. So we will also have Attorney Gelderman on the probably zooming in to join us for that meeting. So we would very much hope that we would be able to close the public hearing by the end of the meeting on April 7th, but we'll just have to see as new information is submitted. So with that, I propose to, I think the right word is adjourn, not close, adjourn the public hearing. Thank you very much to the applicants, interveners, and everybody else. And I would just like to ask commission members if there's any other business that they'd like to raise. Very good. So may I hear a motion, please?
I make a motion to close, to adjourn the meeting. I'm sorry, second the motion.
Did you do it? We didn't talk yet.
Oh, sorry.
So
I'll
who's
make
making the motion?
make a motion to
Adjourn. Very good. Seconded by Mr. Ramirez. Very good. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.